Ready?
Adult One Bible class at Central Baptist Church. We're glad you could join us by video. We meet every Sunday at 10 o'clock here at Central in the Fellowship Hall. We'd love to have you come and be in person with us. If not, we're glad you join us by video. We're going to get started here today. We're probably not going to have the music today due to circumstances, but we're going to get on into the lesson. So if you want to look at John chapter 4, I think it is. I'm sorry. 5, I'm sorry. I thought you were right. John chapter 5, 2 through up. So we're going to go from there, and it's how Jesus restored to life. And so if you want to follow along with us. I want us to class a question today, and I'm sure you all can answer this. When have you been in a situation where you felt helpless? Huh? How about when you went to the doctor and you got a diagnosis that wasn't too good? Did you feel helpless over that? A lot of people do.
Before my little granddaughter was born, my daughter was in the hospital 10 days, and we didn't know if we'd lose.
Yeah, so you were helpless. It was a helpless situation, wasn't it? Yeah.
I just got helpless. I wanted to fix it, but I couldn't. But God fixed it.
Exactly. What if you got a call from the police saying you had a family member in an accident? Does that make you feel helpless? If your car wouldn't start and there was nobody around to jump you off, would you feel helpless? Or
Lock my keys up.
what if you park and you go in the store to shop and come back out and you look for your car and it's not there? That happened to my father-in-law one time. He went to the grocery store. I was managing a shoe store right there close to it. And he had a nice, man, it was a sharp-looking car. First thing I know, he come in and said, I need to borrow your car. And I'm going, what? He said, somebody just lifted mine a while ago while I was in the store. Sure enough, they did. They stole it. So he took my car so we could get home.
Well, in church, somebody stole one of our friends' cars.
Okay.
Church service in there.
Yeah. And I'm sure you feel helpless there. Yeah. Yeah. They found my father-in-law's car a couple of days later where it was stripped. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of things in our life that makes us feel that. I mean, you know, if you get stuck in the snow and you're sitting there and you can't go anywhere. Remember the blizzard we had back a few years ago when traffic on interstate was just almost shut down? My son was coming back. He's editor of the Poultry magazine, and they had the convention there in Atlanta. And he got stuck in that. It took, hours and hours and hours to get home. And he's talking about how depressed you get sitting there in the traffic and you can't move. So you can imagine how hopeless and helpless you'd feel like that. Anyway, looking at that, sometimes we see people that call themselves self-made people, and really there's no matter how independent a person is, they may feel that way, but they need help from others and success from there. But the only thing we can do is look to Christ, and He can give us our every needs. Who's going to read verses 1? Okay, Lois, go ahead.
By the sheep gate in Jerusalem there is a pool called Bethesda in Aramaic, which has 5 colonnades. Within these lay a large number of the disabled, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been disabled for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and realized he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the disabled man answered, "I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, someone goes down ahead of me."
Okay. Look how the life-changing experience sometimes when it happens to us. And if we look at this, we see that there's a need it provides. And certainly here in this, Jesus, when he left, well, you know the story where he was at Galilee, left and went through Samaria. From there, later as he came back, coming to Jerusalem, it said he met then here at the Sheep's Gate in Jerusalem. Now there were 5 colonnades, or porches, if you want to put it that way. And he saw a lot of people. It said a multitude of people were there with all kind of problems, whether it be blind or lame or paralyzed. And so he's talking about the situation sometime that we're in and we get into, and he's talking about this here. The sheep gate was there, that where I guess they kept the sheep that they were going to sacrifice But it was all called, the place was called Bethesda, which was house of mercy. And if anybody needed mercy, those people did, because a lot of them were in bad shape. But I want you to think about something here as we look at this lesson. What about those who are in church today, or people maybe not in church, that's going through a time in life they're spiritually blind? They're spiritually crippled at what they're doing, or else they're paralyzed, spiritually paralyzed in their life because they don't know Christ and they need help. This guy needed help in his situation, and it says Jesus came by, and as we look at it, he was really in a desperate situation. So when we look at people today, sometimes they're looking for something to happen, and we see that some people today are sometimes swept through emotions and engulf us, and sometimes postpone decisions for Christ while waiting something else to happen. And there's a lot of people like that. So here this guy laid, for 38 years now, he laid there by the pool. I don't know if it was every day. I'm sure he took back and forth. But for 38 years, he come to the pool every day expecting a miracle. But somehow in their mind, they thought some angel came down and stirred the waters, but there's an underground spring there, and every now and then it would erupt and cause the waters to swirl. But they thought an angel came, and the first one in was supposed to be healed. Now, I'm sure, this is my thinking now, I'm sure some people were psychologically having problems. Some people might have been superstitious, but some had some real problems. I think we did not deal with that in our world today. We've got a lot of people who have psychological problems, things in the mind, more so than physical. And so when we see what he's telling the people here, he says they gathered there. He said he was there 38 years. Look at that, 38 for just a minute. The number 3 would represent what? God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, wouldn't it? What would number 8 do? Think about it. Remember the time of creation? We had 7 days and completed the time of creation. But the 8th day represents a new beginning. And so here he's saying, through the power of the Spirit, he's going to get a chance for a new beginning. He doesn't know that just yet, but 38 would represent that. Did you realize that? It took me a long time to find that out, so I'm glad y'all noticed that. Anyway, look at what he said as he walked there. He saw him and looked at the rationale to it. Their disability. We see a lot of people today, he's laying there by the pool for continuously for 38 years. How many people attend a church service and sit in the pew for years waiting for something to happen in their life? They keep postponing that decision they need to make. But here this guy, he said, I can't do it. Nobody comes by to help me. When the water is stirred, somebody gets in there before me, and I don't need it. Somebody needs to come and help me get in the pool. Well, he felt abandoned, helpless, and I'm sure he did. But he had an interest in being cared. He had that disability. He couldn't get himself in there. And some people look at the condition. Actually, what we see today, the average, I guess you could say the average person in the pew on Sunday morning is impressive, dressed in fine clothes. But when you look at their situation, their need for comfort, they have troubles in their life, they need to be healed. I think the pew sometimes full of a lot of hurting people. Now, you might not see it. I may not see it. They may keep it hidden well. But there's people sitting in the pews sometime on Sunday morning is hurting, going through a difficult time. Now, I know because of the inflation, a lot of people's had some difficult times in the last year or so with the price and things. It's making it struggle sometimes to live. And they're hurting sometimes financially. But some people are hurting emotionally inside, and we don't know that unless they want to share it. And so what he say here is we look at it, some people are looking for, I guess to say, a supernatural event to happen in life. Instead, they want to put it off, but they're looking for a situation to happen. Somebody's looking for something phenomenal to happen, I guess. Like lightning flashes in the sky and everything jumps up and down so that they know to move. Well, it doesn't work that way. The Spirit moves you sometime in a quiet way. The Spirit moves for you to move. I mean, it touches you for you to move. So what we're seeing today is sometime in the churches is a lack of people wanting to be made whole. We're seeing a lot of people suffering from sin sickness today that they don't see, but they're in it, and they don't realize it. And what he wants to do is make whole. And this is what happened to the man here. He had a physical problem, but he wanted to be well. You know, when you're sick or you have a problem, don't you want to be well? I think so. So when we look at it, think in those terms there, that here all these people were, basically laying under a porch. There's a lot of them. But Jesus happened to see him. Now what happened when he saw him? He asked him a question, which I thought, why would you ask that? Do you want to be made well? I think the man was thinking, after 38 years, you asked me that? I want to be well. So I think Jesus did that to see how the man responded. Now I'm going to say this. I'm going out on a limb saying something today I may get massacred for. Have you ever met some people that just don't want to be well? They thrive in their own problems and sickness, that they don't want to be well. And they don't mind, sharing every time they tell you all these things, but they don't want to be well. It's a thing with them that I've got to be this way. I don't want to be made. I don't want to be healed. I don't want to be made well. And there's people like that. So he wanted to be. That was his prerogative to be. So when we look at the lesson today, I want us to think in terms of spiritually, how spiritual he was, how we see people today in their spiritual walk, if they want to be made whole, or you see some who just not give in. You see some people sometimes that the Spirit's moving, but they sit there like this. And what God is saying is, move. And sometimes it says, well, I was going to go down, but somebody went before me. And I'll just wait the next time the pastor gives the altar call because they already had one go down. Isn't that what this guy said at the pool? I couldn't get in because when the water was stirred, somebody got in there first, and I couldn't get in. Now, why would somebody in church, why would that affect spiritually somebody look at it, somebody else went down, so I won't go today? Man, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if you had a house full down in the altar, wouldn't it? I was so impressed this week, I think I sent it to you. A worldwide revival going on in Israel and Africa. At some of the universities, showing thousands of people out there raising their hands and praising God for it. I turned around, I told somebody, I said, I'd like to see that in Gainesville, Georgia. Our whole town here worshiping and praising and raising their hands and praising and giving God the glory for what he's done for them. I don't know if we'll see it. I hope we could. I don't think I've told you this before. I think, and I could be wrong, and I think the scripture probably painted out, I think before the end times, we'll have a great revival. And I'm wondering, I'm not prophesying, I've got somebody to, I'm wondering if this we're seeing there, is that some of the beginning? Could be, I don't know. I think you'll see a stirring among the people before Christ comes back. And we need that stirring. We need to be uplifted. We talked about revival before. We need to be revived, refresh ourselves anew in the Word. And I think this is what this guy, he needed to be revived in his life physically, but there's people need to be revived spiritually in their life. I think I even told you this. Some churches don't need revival, need resuscitation. But when you see it, you wonder, what's happening? We should be full. Listen, Christian people are so full of joy that it overflows like a fountain he's talking about when he was talking about the living water last week. How it would overflow in us that the world would see it. But sometimes we look like we're sitting in a morgue thinking, I wish you'd hush, you don't want to go home. I'm thinking about the roast I got in the thing and what we're going to have for lunch. Why don't you hush? Or it's gone entirely too long. We should have quit 20 minutes ago. And sometimes it happens. And I know we need to be kind of on somewhat of a time schedule. I understand that. But there is people sometimes that just get so bent out of shape over it. And I think I've probably shared this with you before too, but I think I spoke, it's in Danielsville, Georgia. Spoke at church there. I went 5 minutes past 12, and the guy, the older gentleman, played the organ. Went to the preacher and just raised cane with him because I made him be late at the restaurant. And I thought, God help him. He's supposed to be spiritual enough to play the organ, but he can't wait 5 minutes to leave. You see, sometimes we feel that way that, it shouldn't be. But if, what really amazed me that day was they had a whole list of people on the bulletin. And that was back during the Gulf War when we was going to be in harm's way. I knew nobody was going to come down. I could look at the crowd and tell them speaking there was going to be no action. But I did say, on this next verse, let's come down and pray. You may have lost folks, or pray for people on your bulletin, or pray for our nation. And what knocked me for a loop is not a single person that came down for prayer. Now, the little evilness in me, I looked at the pastor and said, Pastor, it's yours, and God help your soul. When we left, I told my wife they need to put Ichabod on the door there because the Lord has departed. And sometimes you see that, and that's sad. Now, I don't mean we got to jump for joy and flip pews and hoop and holler and dance down the aisle. We don't have to do that. I mean, if you want to, I guess that's okay. But what I'm saying is we need to be full of joy. Let people know what it's like to love the Lord. And so sometimes I don't see it. And I think this guy's going to see it. Read the next verses. I'm sorry.
Get up, Jesus told him. Pick up your mat and walk. Instantly, the man got well, picked up his mat, and started to walk. Now that day was the Sabbath. And so Jews said to the man who had been healed, this is the Sabbath. The law prohibits you from picking up your mat. He replied, the man who made me well told me, pick up your mat and walk.
Now look what happened here. When Jesus met him, he looked at him and he said, the guy thought, Jesus, can you put me in the water? And Jesus looked at him and said, get up and walk. Luckily, the man was obedient. He got up and he got his mat he'd been laying on and left. Now, here's what's amazing. He didn't even ask who it was that healed him. He just walked off. And so Jesus did something for him. It was instantly that he got well. And it said what happened then, the man, if you look at it, I scored the compassion here he had. But we see the hope that he got from Jesus and how it would affect him in the future. But he saw in him, God did something for him that he couldn't do for himself. You see, sometimes we rely on ourselves or somebody else to do it for us, but he needed the Savior. He needed him to come forward and heal him of his situation. And so we see people today who need the Savior. You can't save yourself. I heard a guy one time say, you don't need that, you can save yourself. Well, no, you can't. You got to have Christ in your life to be saved. That's the only way. He said, accept him and for salvation. I mean, there's no other option to do that. That's the only way you're going to get to heaven. But he said, look how he continued here in the man's encounter with that. The miracle that occurred, how the instructions came to be obedient. But look what happened. The place was on the Sabbath that happened. Now, traditionally, or what they had, or not traditionally, but according to Scripture, the Sabbath was a day of rest. That's the time that we were to lay back and worship God and get renewed for the week ahead. So he was coming under some condemning from the Jewish people to what he did. Now, instead of them looking at the Sabbath, they turned the Sabbath in a bunch of rules and regulations and rituals that you had to follow. Then he became out to be officers to go around and point out where you messed up. So they went to this guy, and how come you're walking around toting your mat? Don't you know you violated the Sabbath? Now, they wasn't concerned that he was healed and walking. They was more concerned that he violated one of their rules. Now, they made it so strict and so many rules and regulations, the Sabbath didn't come to be the Sabbath anymore. It come to be their particular religious setting that we're going to apply the rules here. Do this, do that, do this, do that, and don't, I mean, nobody would know. I mean, spitting on the street or doing this or doing, whatever the case may be, you could not do anything that looked like work on the Sabbath. Now, I remember growing up at a lot of our stores in Gainesville, Georgia, was closed on Sunday. Now, how about this? Also growing up, those stores downtown around the square where all the commerce was, they closed Wednesday at lunch. Y'all remember that? Why did they do that? You see, people then was more concerned with their spiritual aspect than we do now. What our world became to be is a commerce where we want all the dollars we can get. That's why some of them went from being regular hours in a day to 24 hours a day, so they could get more business in. The only problem, I'm offline right here a minute, but I got to say this. What really shocked me this week is I've seen several banks belly up. Now that's scary, folks. Let me tell you. That's not recession. We're headed for a deep depression and a collapse if this thing continues. So, just telling you ahead of time, Silicon Valley looked like one day they were doing good, and the next day they're boom. Keep that in mind. But what he's saying here, these people had so many developed lists of rules and regulations, they turned it into so restrictive, it was hard to rest and renew yourself on the Sabbath because you could be guilty of violating one of their rules. Now, you couldn't live like that. Who would want that? So he said, look, honoring those things. He said, look at the Jews, how they regulated that and how they forced people to live according to their restrictions. But see, they didn't look at the good that Jesus did. They were condemning him for what he done. Don't you know you can't do that on the Sabbath? They didn't know who they were talking to. And so they looked at all these things and they confirmation there, and we see Jesus as the leader, how he cared for the man, how they didn't. Notice how they took responsibility for violating the law. First of all, the guy said early in the conversation he blamed the people who abandoned him there at the pool. Then he blamed the ones who got in the pool before him. So he was passing the buck on the things that happened. Sometimes we do that, don't we? We pass the buck on blaming our own situation, blaming someone else, and that's what he was doing. So in chance here, we notice that the man didn't know Jesus. After he saw him and been healed, he walked away, as I told you, and didn't even ask who made him whole. Now, he'll find out a little later. Somebody read it. Who got the last verses? All right, George.
Jesus replied, truly I tell you, the Son is not able to do anything on his own, but only what he sees the Father do. Whatever the Father does, the Son likewise does these things. For the Father loves the Son and shows him everything he is doing. And he will show him greater works than these, so that you will be amazed. And just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so the Son also gives life to whom he wants.
Now notice what Jesus first said. He could, bring life to anyone who would turn to him, and he still does. We have to turn to him, and he gives us life eternal if we turn to him and accept him. But they didn't know who healed him. And so later we see Jesus met the man at the temple, and he warned him, he said, about letting sin control his life. He told him, go and do sin no more on that. The man then realized, now this is where the man actually had faith enough to believe in Christ and was turned. But we see how he reported to the religious leaders. They confronted him that he had violated that regulation, and it infuriated Jesus. Because he looked at it and he said, me and the Father have a love for each other. Whatever the Father wishes, that's what I wish. Whatever he tells me, that's what we'll do. And the Father also, he said, I was following his rules, or not following his, I was following his word, and what he said was to touch the guy and heal him. So when we look at it, he's talking about the love there, how they recorded that back and forth. He said, between the Father and Son, the love they had. You remember when Jesus started his ministry and John the Baptist baptized him? And what did God say? This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. The love that he showed for his Son, how much he cared and how much the Son cared for the Father. That's a loving relationship he had. And that's what he's saying here, the Father and Son, how they provided the setting here, how it disclosed on that. But how's it exhibited? When we look at the actual truth of what's happening, he talks about the mercy that was shown to him and how he continued to talk about the Jewish leaders and question them. And then he said then he had healed the man at the pool. And he pointed out that he witnessed only the beginning of the Father's work through him. Now, this is what we got to keep in mind. God sent Jesus to the earth and had a job for him to do. That was to bring salvation to those who will accept. His job was to reach out to those and try to, well, hopefully the whole world would get saved, but we knew he wouldn't. But he had a performance to do. God laid out details for him of what he would be equipped for. So he says, y'all think that's something? What we can do in the future, you're going to be amazed about. We can bring death back to life. And he goes down, and then later they started believing that when he raised Lazarus from the dead and put life back in him. And, of course, that's a good story for us. And if he raised Lazarus from the dead, means when we go, he can raise us up in the great day of resurrection. That's what we get excited about. One day, when that happens, in the great resurrection, he's calling us up, and we're going to go up to be with him. He said, well, greater things we can do on this. And what he's saying, the Father has the power to do this, and because the power he's equipped me to do the job that he has asked me to do. So he's giving, for instances here, he had the same power to give life, he said. And we see the Jewish leaders, every one of them there, as they looked at it, Jesus told them the truth, but they wouldn't want to have no part of that. But we see the assertion here of the Father. What was the worst there? They was trying to blame him of blaspheming. That's when they started condemning Jesus and went after him then to do it. That's when things began to turn around. And they looked at him from the standpoint that basically, let's get rid of this guy. And what it was, see, wherever he went and did these things, he was drawing a crowd, and they didn't like that. And because of what he was saying, they accused him of blasphemy. So when we look at it from that standpoint, does that not happen in our world today? God has a message through Jesus and brings the message to a lost world, but some people turn around and blaspheme him for that. Now, not everybody, but you have some people that really get irritable and dang right nasty when you're talking to them about religion. If you don't believe it, try it sometime. Some of them will get ugly with you, that they don't want a part of it. And what he's saying here, they looked at that, and these should be the religious crowd. They should have been the first ones to accept it and say, we believe what you're doing. Now, they knew in the creation that he took the dust and made man and breathed into the breath of life. But they wouldn't want to accept Jesus for the miracles he was doing. Now, we can do it by faith, by looking and reading about it and understand it. And some people can testify that they've had a healing in their life. It was divinely inspired. Now, I'm not so sure that all these, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure that everybody that thinks they get healed somewhere don't get healed, But anyway, Jesus has the power to do that. If he could do it then, he can do it now. And we don't realize the power in our hands through the power of prayer to reach out to God in our vocabulary to ask God for the help that we need. And this is what Jesus said here. Even by the pool, when he declared the healing man at the pool of Bethesda, Jesus could restore things that's broken. In your life, if you have a brokenness, a broken relationship, or broken something, God can fix it. We think about it sometimes when life seems to be shattered. Think about this. If you think your life's been shattered, I want you to think about this. You ever seen a beautiful stained glass sometime? They can take pieces of glass and put it together and make a beautiful thing. And that's what God does. Takes those things in our life and puts us together and makes it better than what it was. So he wants to fix those things that's broken even in our life. So he's looking at how they refuse to believe the truth. The miracle at the pool. The reality that Jesus alone could give life. They didn't want to believe that. But we see the reality that Jesus continues to be true today. He wants to restore the lives of people. You see, that's where we come to a realization. Do we really need Jesus? Now, how many times do you figure someone has decided not to go down the aisle of a church and make a personal decision for Christ because someone else went down? Somebody went ahead of him. But Satan spoke in and said, he or she's heart, or he or she postponed that personal decision through Christ, thinking, oh, well, I can go next time when the pastor gives an invitation. You see, sometimes we postpone, and that's dangerous. Now, the greatest story I can tell you is of my life and the moment Jesus saved me. And if you're a believer, that's the greatest moment in your life. And we have a testimony to share, but sometimes do we share it? He wants us to share that testimony with a lost world out there. Now, are we perfect people? No. Are you above sin? No. But listen, you're serving a forgiving God, one that loves you and cares for you. Even if you mess up, what happens? Listen to me careful. Jesus is standing by the right hand of God, pleading our case, saying, that's mine. I paid a dear price for that one. They're mine. You see, we got that at our hand, the most power we could have. That don't mean you just go out and just live it up anyway and do what you want to do. That's not what he's saying. If you're trying to live right and do sin, because there's sins of omission as well as commission. You can commit a sin, but there's sometimes things comes in you omitted that can be sin. He said, for you to do it good and don't do it, that is sin. Think about that. But we have an advocate with the Father that can restore our relationship. Think about that as we depart today. Think about this guy here who needed healing. Think about the people, and I don't know in our church how many people saved or lost. God didn't give me that wisdom to know. Only them and God knows. Well, 3 people know, Satan, God, and the person. And Satan ain't happy when that happens. But God and the person's in control. When they come to God for him, that makes them his. So think about that as we look at it today, even not in this church, but in any church. How many might be sitting there that's without Christ? What's troubling that we need to think of, that they may depart this world lost. And if you really think about that, that's a troubling situation. I'm going to say this and I'm going to close. I had one person that sent for me one day to come visit with him. And he started telling me about his funeral was what he wanted. So I started inquiring, and nobody could, including himself, could tell me when he was saved. And finally one of the members started saying, well, I think, maybe back in such and such when he was so-and-so, I think he did. Well, nobody could be sure. Well, it's not the preacher's place to put somebody in heaven or hell either way, but it makes it a lot easier to speak over somebody if you know they're saved and don't know way to heaven. It makes it a little more difficult when you know they're not, or there's question on where they are or not. But we don't know even if somebody's in a subconscious state or in a state where they're not really thinking out loud, where you can hear them. You don't know what's going through their mind and what emotion stirs that soul. God can tell even our inward thoughts. You don't know what's going through their mind to think. So whatever it was, and this guy just said, I don't know what stirred the emotion of his soul. But I'm going to tell you this. We can leave our friends in the hand of a just and righteous judge. That's all you can do. You don't know where he's going. You're hoping when people give you a testimony that they're truthful in their testimony. But that's a sad situation when you do that. So what I'm saying to you now, and to sum it up, is so many people in our world today is without Christ. And I hope we can get to break out a revival here that would just instill in people's hearts the love of God. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this time today. God, I know we got off schedule a little bit or off text a little bit on some things. And God, that's my fault, so forgive me for that. But as we look at the lesson today and realize the power you have to heal, the power you have to do the things that need to be done in our life, to lead us and guide us and direct us, to offer us that plan of salvation that you've come and paid the price for, that we could come unto you and be forgiven. Cleanse us and make us white as snow. we can do that before us. So help us as we go forward in our world today, God, that we can be an instrument. We can be the messenger right there, God, to tell people about your love. Share our testimony with people we come in contact with. As we go this week, God, I just hope in our life that we'll take time this week, maybe share our testimony with somebody. And maybe it'll touch their heart and they want to come to be part of you. Go with us now and direct us. In everything we do, we uplift you and give you honor and glory for what we do. In Jesus' name, amen.